Anza, Saqib, the Head of Corporate Affairs at CxO Global Forum, talking to you live from Islamabad. We are very excited to announce the second episode of CxO Tech Talks. So, CxO Global Forum is a knowledge sharing platform for all C-levels across Pakistan and the globe. We take massive pride in being able to contribute to the knowledge economy. We have our team of experts and influencers and people who really made a mark for themselves in the corporate industry. CxO Tech Talks was a joint initiative with one of our members, Hasan Zuberi. He's with us in this session. And we thought it would be even more appropriate to also invite some international speakers to come share knowledge with all our members and the world at large, because there's so much innovation happening. Just like I say these days, the things aren't happening, they're happening. So everything's happening on an app. So that in itself, combined with the pandemic and how we've had to just speed up digital transformation for most businesses, it's only necessary that we keep ourselves updated with how fast-paced technology is and what new outlets are available, how our lives are going to be impacted. So with that, I'm going to introduce the first guest that we have today. His name is Yasser Anta. He's joining us from UAE today, Dubai. He's the product manager, cybersecurity at EliteVAD. And I will let him explain the topic of discussion today and his take on it. Over to you, Yasser.
Thank you. Thank you, Anza.
Yasser, your mic is...
It's a pleasure actually to join you in this contribution. I think it's very useful to have the people share their thoughts and probably knowledge across the region. So my name is Yasser Anter. I work as a cybersecurity product manager within EliteVAD distribution. I have a strong background in IT, started with software development and ended up by cybersecurity and digital forensic. Now, when we talk about digital, I think the evolution that we are facing at the moment is very huge and very fast, and we need to adapt ourselves to the world. Otherwise, will be obsolete. So I remember a few years back when we used to rely on the Ethernet connection, and the wireless was a fancy feature to the people. But I remember as well that today, if you have a laptop without a network wireless card, then probably you will not buy it. So it's became mandatory. Same thing happened with the financial sector, with the ATM card and now credit cards, and now we are moving to mobile payment applications. So things are moving towards the digital environment, and with the digital, it's a virtual copy of yourself, and people are working actively in this one. And with artificial intelligence features and growth as well, we are facing more challenges here and there. Smart cities and the application developed for the smart cities, which is actually made to make our life much more easier and more efficient, I would say. We need to put some controls. We need to put some security measurements. We need to identify the people who are joining this virtual world. And in order to do that, we need to apply certain controls. Otherwise, our identities will be copied. We might be impersonated. We might have executions for actions that we didn't do by ourselves. And that's one of the reasons why we actually need technologies that supports digital identity, supports digital ID proofing, security measurements and controls into this domain, in order to make sure that we deliver the right services to the right customers and also protect the back end, the services running normally. Now, we have also situations which enforce the acceleration of moving into the digital world, which is something like the COVID-19. Now, if you look at the COVID-19 situations, we have most of the people now are working over IT infrastructure with security measurements and control in the back end. So in order to update ourselves and keep ourselves moving forward in this direction, we need to enforce the ID digitalization, the IT transformation very quick, but also in a secure manner. And that's one of the main reasons, actually, why we suggested that we would like to invite our colleague from Entrust team to give us more insights about how they look from their own point of view about the digital identity and how they think about securing them, and how we can offer services to end users, customers, financial banking, governments, in order to accelerate and move forward and adapt to the technologies we have nowadays.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Yasser, for your time and quickly summing up the whole topic on digital identity. You rightly pointed out that this is the need of the hour, because as the world is changing now, whether it's in the financial sector because we're going towards cashless banking, or it's for security, or since there's a lot of cloudification all over the world, it opens up, even though it makes things very easy, processes are streamlined, but there is also a new set of risks that we were not earlier aware of. So thank you for shedding light on those. I believe you have to get
My
back to your
pleasure.
meetings. I'm very
That's
grateful to
right.
you for taking us time, and we can
Thank you
take the
very much.
topic of discussion.
Thank you very much,
Thank you,
and I wish
Yasser.
you best of
And
luck.
we look
Take care.
forward to
Thank you.
hearing more from you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you so much.
So I'm going to move towards Juan Rodriguez. Juan, I'm just going to ask you in particular that when we talk about digital identity, often it is basically any information that is used on a computer system to represent any external agent. So this could be a company, this could be a person, but obviously it's a buzzword. So if you were to educate the masses and tell them about what digital identity is, because most people just confuse it with social media profiles. So could it be
Yes,
facial biometrics? So could you please explain to us what digital identity is?
thank you. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I
Hello?
can.
Okay, perfect.
Yes,
Okay,
we can. Right.
so thank you for giving me the opportunity first to collaborate in your event. For us, it's a pleasure to be here. Okay, so digital identity, honestly speaking, it's something very broad, but to have more or less a definition of what I think it is digital identity, I think that the one which is most close to what I feel is that digital identity is the body of information about an individual, organization, or electronic device that exists online. So unique identifiers and use patterns make it possible to detect individuals or devices. So this is what I
Right.
think is a very nice definition for digital identity. Today, with digital identity, gives you the possibility to be authenticated in a digital way. Imagine using an app, for example, through digital channels like online, mobile. So you don't need to go anymore with to any physical branch of any organization, company, public administration to be authenticated with your physical ID card or passport. Okay, so for example, from Entrust, since more than 50 years, we are really focused on cover all those types of digital identity use cases through technologies like PKI, technologies like multi-factor authentication, technologies like ID
Yes.
proofing, which you can find today in many different banks and many different public administrations. Just to give you an example, one of our best customers, which is Banco Estado in Chile, they are using our technology as a digital identity solution for more than 8 million users. So just
Wow.
giving you an idea of how important it is today, the digital identity.
Right, absolutely, Juan, and some very, very pertinent points made actually. So we have now even progressed from multi-factor authentication to now there's a lot of AI-based facial biometrics, I believe, and some newer technologies that have come in as well. So Henriette, I'd like to ask you about your take on what exactly does digital identity encompass? Um,
Well, what it encompass is, of course, I mean, things are moving in the digital. You know, we are using digital identities for almost everything, but of course, I mean, you can use it, and social media. You just mentioned it, and yes, that's also part of it. But it's so much more. Like Juan said, it's when you do your transfer in your banks, it's when you buy in the grocery online. I mean, everything you do online is exposing your identity, and for us, it's also a lot about securing those identities, and ensuring and making sure that companies' data is secure. And if you look at it, it's very much also about the user, because we are opening up much more right now for users to kind of access company data from outside, from other devices. So what we do also with our solutions, because the users are really important to us, and it's important that they use the security technology that we set up for them. And that means that the technology needs to be frictionless for the user. It needs to be easy to use. It needs to be easy to implement. So it's all around that. And that space that we work around for digital identities.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Does that respond to your?
Yes, it does respond to my comment. But coming back to you, Juan, there is also, a lot of, let's say, confusion that happens, because generally it's a buzzword that a lot of people are throwing around. So when you talk about digital identity, just like Henriette pointed out, that it could also be social media logins or credentials, so like somebody's Twitter profile or Facebook profile. But then if your digital identity is supposed to take you back to the real you, for example, then what about all these fake profiles? And if someone is trying to, for example, they have pseudo blogs and articles, and somebody is running a group or a page, does that also is that also considered digital identity?
Okay, digital identity is being considered for many, many topics. Today, the majority of people thinks about digital identity about just the using of a user and password, but it's a lot more than that. When you are talking about the usage of social media, of a Facebook profile or Twitter or something like that, at the end, we are talking about identity, an identity of one person. It doesn't matter if it's for Facebook, for Twitter, or for getting access to a financial institution, which is very important. So at the end of the day, our solutions are completely focused to protect the identity of that person. We are trying to provide the security to the end customer that his profile, his identity is not going to be spoofing somehow. Okay, and thanks to our solutions, we are getting this objective. Okay, so with our multi-factor authentication, you were mentioning something very important: biometrics. Biometrics today are part of our multi-factor authentication mechanisms, but a combination of different mechanisms of authentication, it's the key. I wouldn't suggest to any customer to use only one mechanism of authentication in order to identify their customers. Depending on the risk of the transaction, when I'm talking about transaction, I'm talking about a login or maybe a money transfer, for example, in a bank. Depending on that risk, we need to really study, to analyze the risk of that transaction, and depending on the risk, if it's high risk, medium risk, or low risk, we are going to allow this customer, this user, to log into the account with one mechanism of authentication or other. Let me put you an example very quickly. Imagine that you are trying to make a money transfer of, for example, $50 to your husband or to your colleague, okay? So maybe for that low risk transaction of $50, maybe the mechanism of authentication appropriate in order to allow you to approve that money transfer could be an SMS OTP or could be a simple OTP generated with a soft token, okay?
Right.
But imagine that you want to make a transfer of $10,000 to somebody else that you have never done that transfer in the past. Obviously, this is a kind of different risk for that transaction, and maybe your bank will apply you for a different mechanism of authentication in order to allow you to approve the transfer. For example, using your fingerprint or your facial recognition.
Facial recognition, right.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So that's the point. From me, the reach of our technology is that you can combine many different mechanisms of authentication in order to allow the people to be protected in the right way. Because it's not the same always the type of risk per each transaction. So we have to always combine the risk with the mechanism of authentication we are going to provide to the customer.
Absolutely. And Henriette, coming to that, Juan mentioned some very important points about the financial sector. And obviously, one of the major concerns is the financial sector. So what happens here is that I remember up until about a year or two ago, with your iPhone or your mobile wallet, my credit card was just there. So if I was traveling in America or UK, whether you were paying at a McDonald's or whether you were paying at a high-end boutique, all you had to do was just scan your phone wallet. But with the digital identity and the solutions that you all are providing, will it make conventional debit cards and credit cards obsolete?
To be honest, I think Juan should answer the question because it's like your core, Juan.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. It will be a pleasure. Okay, this is a good question, Anza. Very good question. And this is something that the industry today is really considering because we are going in a dramatic way to the digital transformation. So many things that we are using today as normal are going to disappear sooner or later. And one of the things would be, for example, credit cards or debit cards.
Yeah.
So in the majority of cases now, huge organizations like MasterCard, Visa, Amex, they are working on digital ways to continue running their business as today. Because
Juan, I'm just going to interrupt you for 1 minute there because I read something very interesting on Bloomberg today, and they said as of today, Bitcoin, the value of Bitcoin has, in terms of the money that they've generated, it surpassed MasterCard and Visa and American Express altogether. So interesting take. I'd like to hear your take on that as well.
No, yes. I mean, at the end of the day, Bitcoin is something that is not really familiar for the majority of the people. It's a kind of market that is not really under control of anybody. So it's with a lot of suspicious of really a lot of bad things behind that.
Absolutely.
So it's a kind of market not regulated in any way. So obviously, it's a way, and this is the reason from my point of view why exists Bitcoins. It's a way for bad guys to do bad things,
Yeah.
So, and this is the main reason is very success that Bitcoin ecosystem. But honestly speaking, this is something that is not, how to tell you, realistic in a real world. Okay, until it's not a common way of payment or a common way of making a lot of deals. Okay, so and let me tell you one thing: the majority of the huge banks are really against those type of actions, and not tell you the governments. The governments are really opposite.
Absolutely, they want transparency.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So this is another type of chat about Bitcoins. Very, very exciting, I would say. But as well, is really related to the digital identity because Bitcoin, as you know, is using blockchain in order to
Absolutely, blockchain.
to identify the people, to identify the digital identity of the people. And blockchain is connected to our multi-factor authentication at the end, because the different mechanisms of authentication that the end user will use in order to approve any transaction are coming from a multi-factor authentication solution. Okay, so at the end of the day, the multi-factor authentication is around, or is in the center, of many other topics around, and it's really important. And this is my principal message today, that all organizations, above all financial institutions, above all governments, they should have on board a multi-factor authentication, but with a high class solutions of different mechanisms of authentication.
Absolutely, just like Entrust. Absolutely, you're so right. And then I'm going to come towards Henriette now. So whether we're sitting in a polarized market like Pakistan, or we're talking about the Netherlands, or we're talking about the USA, Canada, one thing remains common, and that is that whenever we talk about cashless banking or financial transactions, online shopping, putting out accounts and systems, digital systems, a lot of people are still reluctant about using these solutions, because they feel like when you're putting out our data, what's going to happen to our personal data? And how do you actually address this narrative? Like, when you're talking about your solution, how do you convince people that it's okay to adapt to these systems? Because so how does one convince the general public?
Yeah, so if I understood the question correctly, was how we convince people to use multi-factor authentication? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we all see it. It's just opening the news. I mean, you can see it all the time. There's hacks, there's identity theft all the time.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's just looking at that, and it's also for companies to kind of evaluate: are they, up for losing data? Because we are opening more and more for people
Absolutely.
and employees to log onto our systems. So I mean, the argument is not if they should have it. It's really they need to have it, because otherwise there's an opening into their companies. So I don't think it's so much about that. I think most companies are concerned about being too much friction for their users. But I really think that what we have come up with now is a solution that can really help them. And as Juan also mentioned, we are really evaluating the risk of what it is that the user wants to do, and then we add the mechanism of extra authentication in those cases. So I mean, if we, for example, have a user logging in from the same IP address all the time, and from the same device, then we might not consider it a huge risk. But if, for example, that person suddenly within like half an hour logs on from Copenhagen, and then half an hour later he logs on from Dubai, then we know that this cannot be the same person, and that's when we kind of consider and adding this as extra factor. But it's of course something that is that we work with the customer, the company, about looking at the risk factors that they would like to add for their employees. There could be employees that will have access from different places, and others will only have it from the inside the company. So I mean, it's also something about looking at the users and what the companies wants to allow their users to do from a digital perspective.
Absolutely.
And that's where,
Right.
and that's
Sorry,
where
go on.
the whole the risk engine that Juan was talking about comes in. I mean, we look at a lot of factors when we authenticate our users. So like geolocation, there can be different,
Yeah.
a lot of different things that we look at.
Let me say something, just
Right.
more or less supporting what my colleague Henriette said. You know, it's very important today that when you are establishing or you are thinking in a multi-factor authentication in order to protect the identity of the people, you have to think about the risks. You have to have a module only focused on risk-based authentication. And these type of modules are focused on different parameters that we are going to analyze each time any user make a login or even make a money transfer. So as Henriette was mentioning, types of parameters we are going to evaluate completely transparent for the customer. So the customer is never be realized that we are going to do all these security checks in order to understand if this is a potential fraud or not. That's very important. It's completely transparent. We are going to evaluate, for example, the geolocalization of the person. Imagine that I am Juan Rodriguez. I am in Madrid right now, you know, and I'm making a money transfer. My profile is that I make a money transfer of 1,000 euros every month from Madrid. And tomorrow I am in Rome, or I will be in Rome, and I request for a money transfer of 2,000 euros to my bank. It could be completely possible, but it's a strange behavior for me. So thanks to our tools, we are going to give an alert, send an alert to the bank saying, okay, Mr. Juan is applying for a money transfer of 2,000 euros. This is a strange behavior, but it is possible. So in order to allow him to approve that money transfer, we are going to request him to make a second or even third factor authentication. So for example, using their fingerprint plus the facial recognition, you know? And that is the beauty of this type of solutions. It's a way to protect the end customer from many different bad actors that are working on the on internet and blocking them of trying to generate fraud.
Right. Absolutely, Juan. You definitely touched upon some very pertinent points as well. But then again, a lot of end users are also concerned about, for example, where does our data go? What happens to it? Data is the new gold. So, what are the banks doing with our data? Is there, because now there's obviously that trend of KYC as well, know your customer,
Yes.
and what is happening to our data. So a lot of people, even for that matter, that they're very scared to even click accept when they log on to, GDPR compliant website and you have to accept cookies. So, I'm being tracked, I'm being traced. That's generally the perception. So what exactly happens to the personal data? Because obviously if I'm sharing my facial biometric with someone at, a lot of different authorities, so first the government, then the banks, and then any other company. So, how do you tackle this confusion that users have?
I mean, we are all hearing a lot about how important it is to protect our personal data, So, but just what is personal data? This is one of the things I would like to mention today. Your personal data is any information that relates to your health, employment, bank activities, close relationships, any interaction with government agencies. But personal data as well could also be anything that you contributed with the reasonable expectation that it would remain private. Okay, so that could include, for example, exchanges of emails, messages, phone conversations. It should also include data like your browser search history, which usually is stored into your computer device. So, I mean, that's really today a very important matter, okay? The usability of those data is other story. Because even if there are some regulations, as you mentioned, like GDPR,
Yeah.
You know, people could use that info for many things, and that's the reality, you
Right.
know. So, for example, as not nice example, but real, could be that people sell that info for commercial activities, which is
Absolutely,
one
especially
of the
on the
most
dark.
lucrative ways of using that info. So, I mean, at the end, all these topics are quite important and are very, very sensitive today. And from Entrust, data protection is part of our focus today. We are offering solutions in order to protect and encrypt your private information, like with our HSMs, cryptographical hardwares, which are solutions, which are the best solutions in place today and used by many banks, by many public administrations in order to protect the identity of many, many people. So yes, I totally agree with you. It's something very, very sensitive, very important, and we have to really take care of. And Entrust can help on that.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
if you look,
Absolutely. And
if you look at the facial ID that we use, or the fingerprint, I mean, the facial ID, I mean, the solution, it's not that you can just take a picture of me and then use that picture as a facial ID. It needs to be live, and the system is I mean, set so it can only be me sitting in front of the camera verifying the facial ID. It cannot be a picture of me doing it. That wouldn't work.
But something
yeah,
very important
absolutely.
as well, something very important, when you are talking about facial recognition, when you are talking about fingerprint recognition, one of the key questions of all our customers is, okay, where do you store the information of that
Yes.
fingerprint or facial recognition? Where it is stored? Okay, who is going to use that info? So what
Yes.
we are doing from our technology is that we are not keeping any information from the customer unless the bank wants to assume the risk to keep that information into their systems. Okay, so our technologies always use the template of the fingerprint or the facial recognition for 3 seconds. During 3 seconds, after that will be destroyed, okay, and will be
Right.
disappeared.
Absolutely.
Or we use the templates and the information which is stored into the mobile phone of the end user, because at the end of the day, the end user is the only owner of that information. We have to be really, how to tell you, compliance with important regulations, not only GDPR, even local regulations in different countries that are very important
Absolutely.
in order to protect the data privacy. Okay.
Yeah, and that's also where the different, I mean, the different devices comes in. I mean, it needs to be the device, and it needs to be me as a person. It cannot be any device, and you know, it needs to be connected. So I mean,
Absolutely.
if you want to steal it, you have to steal me as a person and the device.
And the
It is
device.
very important.
Absolutely.
It is
Yeah.
very important what
Juan, I'm
Henriette,
going to. Yeah,
just to
Henriette.
mention something to explain, because I love what Henriette mentioned it. And whenever you enroll your device with your profile as a person, we are going to identify in a unique way your device itself. Okay, so if someone, for example, steal your device and trying to pretend to be you in order to get access to any account, online banking account, mobile banking account, whatever, it's not going to work. It's not going to work because it's need you as a person plus the device in order to get access.
Right, absolutely. So, that in itself also opens up a lot of channels about how you mentioned multiple devices. A lot of businesses now also use omnichannel, especially in for online businesses and retail and everything, because obviously, the number of users, for instance, that shop online through their computers is different from, their online shopping through their mobiles or apps like that. And that in itself, obviously, if you've got your facial biometric identity, your digital identity, that will obviously secure all the devices at once. So a brilliant solution there. I also would like to read some of the comments. We've got a very engaging audience. And one of the things that one of our local members at CxO Global, Mr. Habib Paracha, he's a filmmaker from Hollywood, and he's also supporting a lot of local initiatives. He has written that I would love to connect with Park Pay Blink CEO, with the team at Entrust and maybe look into a possible solution. So Juan and Henriette, I'm going to connect you with him later on and see, because they've got a local payment gateway solution. So maybe, there can be
It
some
will be a
synergy.
pleasure.
Yes, so I'll connect you with them later on. And the other thing is we've also got this gentleman watching, Mr. Adil Imran, and he's got some very pertinent questions as well. And he asks, what about closed loop systems to process user information? One question is that. And also the other thing is that he was talking about the fact that obviously, and I know this because we work on a lot of industry academia linkages. So when you talk about digital identity, a lot of times, like in countries like China, for example, students have their digital IDs, right? And they're passed on to the government. So what happens is that in high profile universities, when they're moving around, when there's movement, there's some students who might have done something wrong when they were younger, maybe, a small drunk driving or something of the sort. And then each time they even try and get information, there is a lot of, a stigma that's attached, because each time they even walk somewhere, it just, labels people as bad. So even though it's good, it's transparent, but is there a way to somehow lessen the stigmatization or discrimination through digital ID?
Okay, this is a very good question, Anza, because today there is a controversial between freedom and security.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so at the end of the day, what is better? And the reality, the answer is that you have to identify the right balance between freedom and security. There is no a final answer for all this and tell you, okay, this is the right way to take. In each country, depending on their own rules, you have to identify the right balance. When I'm talking about security, for me, security, it's like a triangle. Security has to be linked to flexibility and to the adaptation to the reality. Okay, so if you mix this triangle, you will be able to prepare and to define and to develop the right way of giving this type of security technologies to your citizens or to your customers or whoever. But the reality is that thanks to the digital transformation we are experiencing today, above all with this COVID-19 that we are having.
Absolutely, I was just going to come to that. COVID ID.
Yes, exactly. So due to this fact, we are changing a lot our minds. Everything is becoming digital because we are not able to travel. We are not able to go to visit our customers, to visit our partners, to visit our colleagues. So everything becoming digital. And in a digital way, in a digital world, the security is not something, believe me, that many organizations got in mind. Many organizations still think that security is a cost and it is not an investment, which should be like this, and this is the big point. Many organizations, huge organizations that you couldn't you couldn't imagine, they still don't have budgets only for security. They need to request for approvals whenever they want to invest any money on security. And this is something that we have to help the organizations to change their mind in order to tell them, hey guys, security today is linked to the business, to the business of the company. All our solutions that we have in the cybersecurity space are related to the business of the organization. If we create a secure ecosystem for the customers of a bank, those customers will feel more secure and will feel in a better shape in order to do more transactions. And you know that banks are making money based on the transactions of their customers. As many transactions they do, the bank make more money. You know, so
absolutely.
if we prepare that, if we create a nice ecosystem, secure ecosystem, the company will make more revenue, will make more money. You know, so it's all related to business at the end of the day. Our solutions are helping corporations to make more business, but they have to think about this, not in a cost. They have to think in investments.
Yes, in
And there's
investments.
also and
Go
also,
on.
I mean, small things like, for instance, if you're a company and you secure your email, for example, then also think about what happens when your employees download their emails to their mobile device. Is that then, I mean, a lot of companies forget all the backdoors, like things that users are normally doing on a regular basis, and then it's just an open backdoor to the company data. People can get in there through those. So I mean, it's all about thinking it all around. Where are we working, and what is it that we give access to from a company point of view? And that is both banks. It's like it's when you do shopping, and as Juan said, with COVID-19, it has of course changed because a lot of people are working from home. And what we do is a little bit different now. Before, for example, when we traveled, we had our ticket on the mobile phone. We had maybe the access to the hotel we were staying on the hotel. We were calling the cab through our a mobile app, and those are maybe not happening. But then we do different things now. We make the groceries online more than we have done before. We order maybe coffee online.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of there's just a lot of other things that's happening right now, and also it needs to be really easy for the users because they are now working from home. They are not inside the company; they are outside, and it needs to be also, a lot of the things that we do is also like self-service based. So for example, that could be resetting your password. Things like that is made easier for the users because they are on their own from home. Of course, they can call the company and they can do live meetings and everything, but it's just another set of things that we are doing, and those are the ones that we are also securing. So it's basically an extension of what we secured before.
Henriette, you raised some very interesting points, and one of the points that you raised is that obviously for companies, these are brilliant solutions. It's an investment into the future because you can limit the access. However, what about startups or SMEs? Because for them, as it is, they're either looking at seed funding, and most of these tech startups. So for them, is there a more affordable solution available at Entrust, or is it a luxury that's only available to big companies?
Yeah, you can do it.
No, I mean, Entrust is got different ways of approaching the market, okay? So we have different solutions that are adapted for small organizations, which are adapted to medium organizations, and which are adapted for large organizations. So in other words, we are helping all types of organizations worldwide in order to have these typical multi-factor authentications in order to help to identify their customers, okay? And not only this, from our technology, we have three different types of solutions available today. One is on-prem solution, another one would be hybrid, and another one would be on cloud, which is more or less the tendency in the market today. Everybody wants to go on cloud because they see a lot of benefits to have on cloud solutions, services, but anyway, for all customers that they prefer still to have the solution on-prem or to have a mix between on-prem on cloud, we have a solution ready for them. Yes.
Absolutely. Correct. So thank you so much, Juan, for sharing that information, because I believe it's going to, you have really made a lot of SMEs and a lot of startups aware about how many different options for solutions you have. So in essence, Entrust offers solutions for all these different, kinds of businesses. So it's not like, if you don't have the relevant amount of resources, that you can't get one of the solutions. So maybe you can opt for a cloud-based solution. So definitely, that's an important area. But one area where this multi-factor authentication can also be used, and I believe it's still uncharted, untapped territory, especially in the South Asian region, is the education sector. So what do you think is the scope? There are a lot of students. There's grading systems, especially with virtual school now. Why do we need secure end-to-end solutions there?
Sorry, but I couldn't hear you,
No.
Anza.
Okay.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Because I couldn't hear you.
Yes, so I said, especially in the South Asian region now, post-pandemic, now that there is, virtual school, virtual college, why is there a need for identity in the education sector?
Okay, I think that more or less what I understood is that why in the education sector they would need digital identity. No, more or less this is what you were asking. No, okay, yes. Thank you. So from my point of view, the education is one of our biggest pillars in our technology, in our company, because and even just for your information, yesterday we were closing a big deal in a big university in Portugal, in Europe. Okay, so at the end, what we are looking for, or what the education system is looking for, is to provide new ways of interact with their students, and not only with their students, even with the professors, with the teachers. Okay, so today with the COVID situation, that students couldn't go to the schools, couldn't go to the centers in order to receive classes or even to make the exams, the community, the education community, they have to, to make a digital transformation very, very quickly, in order to provide the right tools for all their students, in order to get access to the exams, to the material, to the lessons, in order to continue their daily life, because the world couldn't stop. So we should continue somehow. So thanks to these type of solutions like multi-factor authentication, and not only this one, ID proofing here could be a key element, because whenever we are trying to onboard many students which are located in many different locations, even worldwide, because there are some universities that their students are practically everywhere in the world. Imagine,
yes, like the University of London.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So imagine that how we are going to provide the right credentials to a student which is located in London and another one which is located in Frankfurt, for example, in a secure way. The only way to do that is to identify those guys in a very high level way and high percentage way that it is real, those people. And the way we are offering is with our ID proofing, which is a solution that verify the IDs of the different students, even from different countries. With our solution, we can identify IDs with for more than 150 countries worldwide, and we can include more countries in a question of 2-3 months. So, I mean, it's something unbelievable. It's something so robust and so nice.
Yeah.
And it's giving you the possibility by facial recognition and by checking with more than 50 forensic tests the physical ID of the person, to understand if that person is real, is not real. And then when we prove that this person is real, is when we will provide the right credential that person in order to get access to the university, to the lessons, to the exams, and everything. So this is critical, to be honest with you, the ID proofing process.
Yeah, and also, I mean, internally in the university, imagine, I mean, how much data they have, like personal data, personal identities, like social security IDs, stuff like that. When students are enrolling to a university, so all that data, of course, I mean, that's they just need to protect that, and they need the extra risk. Authentication or a risk-based engine, so that they protect that data. So I mean, it's huge for universities and educational sector, that they can protect that data because they have so much data.
Henriette, just one last question that I have for you, and then one for Juan, because we're coming towards the end of our session. Henriette, to you, I would like to ask you that hopefully international travel will again become a reality and, go back to being normal now that vaccines have rolled out all over the world. How can digital identity, and will it replace passports and airport kiosks and everything? We see it happening in some countries already.
Yeah,
What is the scope of the future for travel?
Yeah, I mean, in Denmark, the passport is just, I mean, that's on a mobile right now. And we are securing the passport there. And, Entrust have been in, I mean, we have created passports for 50 years, so on our big machines. So of course we are on top of the link between mobile and digital passports, driving license, social security ID, stuff like that. So there's a key link between the two, and we are covering it all. And yes, we have countries where, we have provided the solutions for the digital passports. So it's coming. No question about that.
Right. Thank you very much, Henriette, for your time. One last question. How quickly before we can see digital identity becoming a reality all around the world, all around the globe? When can we expect?
Okay, I hope soon, very, very soon, because it's what I told you before about the COVID situation. This COVID situation is helping the whole organizations in the digital transformation. I was reading the other day an analyst, market analyst, about this type of subjects, and he was mentioning that the world is experiencing like a speed up of 6 years now. I mean, that all initiatives in terms of digital identity that today are rolling out should happen 6 years later. Okay, so we are reducing 6 years time with all the things are happening today. Why? Because COVID situation. This is the main driver in order to change the whole ecosystem and to speed up the digital transformation. So, I mean, digital identity, it's something that is going to affect many, many verticals. You were mentioning traveling, but I would say national IDs. I would say healthcare IDs in order to protect the records of the patients. So, I mean, it's very important that digital identity it's coming into a very important
So it's
role.
now, it's here, it's coming. Right. Thank you, Juan. I'm sorry, we're just running late on time, but we really hope to connect with you all next time in the future. If you can just quickly sum up what you were saying in one sentence, please.
For me, digital identity is a key player for the coming years. Absolutely. Everybody should have technology in order to protect the identity of their users, customers, and employees right now. It's key, important.
Thank you. Thank you, Juan. Hasan Saab, thank you for being with us today. If you would just like to say an ending note.
Yeah, I mean, two big thanks. First, one for the CxO Global Forum for giving us EliteVAD an opportunity, and plus a bundle of thanks more to the Entrust team, Juan and Henriette, because of their availability and their time zones, but they're here, and the information they provided is like we can hear it over and over and over again. Because likewise, Juan just said that we are speeding up 6 years ahead right now in time. So I mean, digitization is the need of the hour, and it's here. It's not, I mean, like Juan said, it's coming soon, but it's here actually. We just have to get transformed into it.
Right. Thank you so much. Very, very pertinent points. Ladies and gentlemen, Hasan already thanked the rest of the speakers. I would like to make a key observation here. First of all, that yes, digital identity, this is the future and the future is now. So all the SMEs, all the businesses, the corporate sector, even individuals, I know it's scary. Sometimes change is scary, but change is the only constant in life. So if you haven't already digitally transformed yourself, please go ahead and look into all the brilliant solutions that are available for securing yourselves. This is going to be our future, and this is going to be our lives. So the sooner you adapt to it, the better it is. If you have any questions or queries, please write to us, the CxO Global team. We would love to hear your feedback, and you can follow our guests on LinkedIn. For those of you who want more information about how you can become members, apply for membership as C-levels, you're more than welcome to visit CxOForum.global, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future. We will join you again next week with CxO Tech Talks with yet another interesting guest and an interesting panel. This is me signing off. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Anza. Thanks, Juan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks.